did. I thought I just changed them. Okay, you're streaming. Changed them. Oh, you're live.
Good evening. Call this meeting to order. Make a motion to come out of recess. A second?
Second.
A motion second to come out of recess. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. We are out of recess. So tonight, we're going to try to finish up our budget hearings, and tonight is some discussion about wages. So I'm going to turn it over to City Manager.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Good evening. Hopefully, I'm a little bit more coherent than I was last night. But it could go at any time, so we'll let others take over if I have to leave off. Just like I did last night, that chief. So chief was giving me a lot of grief this morning because I told you all I wasn't gonna talk, and I did anyway, so. So what it goes with the chief like that, you know, you gotta do. Okay, so, the way the budget was prepared for you, we had, budgeted a 50 cent per hour increase across the board. Everybody's wages except city manager. And the usual suspects, mayor, council, city attorney, you know, those folks. And so, during the course of our discussion, the last two night, various conversations occurred about, well, maybe we should do something different here, or maybe we should do something different there. And as you know, there's two things that are consistent over the last 18 years when we discuss wages. And the 118-year law of consistency is Steve Hawkins saying we need to treat everybody the same. And then there's probably the 30-year law of consistency from Mrs. Klein saying, well, we got to make sure we take care of public safety people. Words to that effect. Now, I don't disagree with Ms. Klein. Okay, in fact, I agree with Ms. Klein. However, you know, last year we did $1.50 an hour across the board. And with the police department, we did $2 an hour across the board. The year before that, we did 50 cents an hour across the board. So in the last 2 years, everybody's hourly rate has increased by $2 or $2.50. So, while that's not bad, we also, and I think we all recognize that there's competition for certain classes of employees, not just around the region, but even further around in Arizona. And every year we battle two things. We battle the marketplace and what it may or may not do to us in terms of making other jobs more attractive, or the same job in another community more attractive, and not necessarily the one next door. And the other thing is our ability to pay. Okay. We try to present the budget as a relatively finite amount of revenue balanced with the amount that we can put out in expenses to do the 152,000 things we need to do every year. Okay. Now, I know that there's a lot of people who have opinions about how much money certain people should be paid. And I welcome those opinions. At the same time, most of the people who have opinions don't have, they don't have the understanding that you all have or will develop over time, just the complexity of running a city. Okay, so I'm not here tonight to make a specific recommendation to you, other than the one that's already in the budget. But I am here, to say that I think there's a little bit of flexibility. That we could do a little bit more than what has been put in the budget without doing material harm, to our bottom line. We always have the ability to absorb a certain amount. It's never a lot, but it's a certain amount. And then, Tuesday morning, Chief Cox came to my office and he had a suggestion that, I'm going to ask him to share with you tonight about this particular department. And I think with his suggestion, if you agree with this suggestion, and our ability to, take the 50 cents an hour that we have already budgeted and add another 50 cents an hour to that for an across the board increase of $1. I think there's relatively little difference in what we're gonna spend. It may be up to $100,000, but no more than that. So, Tim, do you wanna present your suggestion to council? Sure.
Grab the mic, sir. Honestly, thanks. I know, you got a voice, but.
I do have a voice.
But there's people who want on there.
Don't want to fall down. Good evening once again. So, after we had our preliminary discussions and, we had talked about it and the discussions of pay had come up. I went back, did a little brainstorming, went through my budget that I had for my department that was budgeted for the last 2 years. Within that budget, I have 2 positions that we have that I have been using mainly for a placeholder, for lack of a better word. We started a program about a year ago, if I remember correctly, where I went to Steve and I told him, I said, we're losing officers because we hire them, but the academy doesn't start for 6 months, and in 6 months they get a job somewhere else and they're gone. So we started these placeholders to be able to bring in those staff, have them work with us for 2-3 months before the academy. And then we send them to the academy to become police officers, and we get to retain them and keep them while they're waiting to go to the academy. With these placeholder positions, I went to Steve and asked him, for a pay raise for the police department, if I could eliminate those 2 positions, position and a half, really, 50% of it kind of stays out. If I could do a more significant pay raise for my department. What I presented to Steve was those 2 positions. Right now, they're classified as a records clerk and an administrative assistant position, because that's kind of what we use those people for before they go to the academy. Combined, each of those positions equals about $48,790 in salaries total, with EFTs and all that built into it. With that money, I presented to the city manager that I could bump up my starting wage for my officers to $23 an hour without costing the city any more additional money, because it's coming out of the budget that I already have set up and ready to go. With that, Steve took it into consideration. He thought about it. We talked again today. Being a good city manager, he had a compromise. He said, I'll see your raise and I'll raise you 2 more.
No, that's not what I'm saying.
But,
That believes me on that one.
yeah. But Mr. Pockman came up with, a compromise that I don't necessarily disagree with. I actually agree with it. I like the idea.
And it's just for new hires.
And it's just for new hires. So with my current, what I presented, that would give our current staff that are currently employed a $2.50 an hour pay raise, which would change the starting salary after a certain amount of time to $23 an hour. And I'll let Mr. Pocken talk about what his idea was that I actually agree with.
Mr. Pockett, can I ask one question?
You bet.
I'm sorry, Chief, you said that of those 2 positions, you had 48. What to work with?
48,790 is what it is. It's a very, the complete
Okay.
budget.
Okay, thank you.
Don't ask me to add 2 of those together because it's not gonna work, but yeah.
My other question is, you're moving them, it would be from ARS to PSBRS, so did you figure that one in?
I did not, but yeah,
Am I not?
The typical period of time from the time now that we have the academy here, and we don't have to wait for one somewhere else in the state. Typically, we can hire them 2 or 3 months later, they're in the academy.
What I meant to say was your EREs,
Yeah,
if you're using a clerk and administrative assistant, they would
Oh.
be under ARS.
that's why I said it was technically, between those two salaries, it's actually a salary and a half, because that half makes up all that other.
actually,
Yeah,
Okay.
what will happen is that, he won't use that whole amount to get where he needs to go for the rest of his employees. It won't be quite the total to those two salaries, so for the month or 2 or 3 that, they worked for us before the academy. In my way of thinking, it's a wash, it's insignificant, so I'm not gonna worry about a nickel, I need to worry about a dollar.
Right.
So, and I know people say nickels make dollars, but not today.
So 250 an hour, that's across the board for every officer.
current certified staff, yes. And then as part of that too, I did offer up that the citywide pay raise that Steve offered to all the employees. I gave up my portion of that to give back to the city for the city employees to increase theirs. This is coming straight out of my budget,
Okay, so,
if that makes any sense.
That makes it, so it's not 250, it's actually 2.
No, it's 250, but it's coming out of my budget.
But we're already planning on the 50 cents, so in reality, it's only costing the police department $2. I might.
Just give it back.
He's giving the whole thing back.
It's not taking the 50.
Oh,
Yeah, that was so the,
well, you're giving it back, but then we're giving it back.
you're giving it to the other
So
employees.
it's really a $2.
yeah, don't worry, Mayor, we'll work it out.
Well, yeah, we'll work it out.
I'm sorry, I'm dyslexic.
Up until now, this wasn't hard.
Yeah,
Um,
sorry. Leave it to me to complicate it.
Couple things that have bothered me for a long time. And it's kind of unique to the police service. When we hire somebody, we hire that person, we put them in the police academy. And then when they get done with the police academy, assuming they make it, and they don't all make it. Then they go through field training program, here with our officers. And it can be close to a year and sometimes maybe even a little longer than a year before they are able to go out and do police work on their own from the daily type. During that year, I don't want to say they're not valuable to us, but they're not up to the full potential of what we hire an officer for. So, what I'm suggesting that moving forward, all new hires start at $21 an hour. They'll remain at $21 an hour until they get their papers from the police academy, graduates. And when they graduate from the police academy, then their pay will increase to $22 an hour. And then they'll go into field training at 22. When the chief certifies them as ready to go and promotes them out of field training to work on their own, then they will reach the $23 mark, which will have them on the same level as the starting salary that you propose now. This is just for new hires. It won't be for laterals, okay? If we're fortunate to find a good lateral transfer, that's gonna be a judgment call, because whoever we hired that has experience, say if we hired an officer with 10 years experience and wants to come with this lateral, we're gonna set that based on qualifications and experience, like we're gonna have, that won't change. So that, I think it solves a problem that I've been having in my head for a long time, because, they're trainees. And, so if we can work up to that, and of course, this will adjust over time as you make other wage adjustments in future years. But, based on what the chief is recommending right now, I would recommend that to be added into that program, because I feel that that's, and that will, you know, the cost will increase then incrementally with the new hires instead of a lot at once. So now, there is one other thing, and this is a separate thing. We're not gonna do it tonight. But one of the things that we've also been discussing over the last couple of years, not just with the police officers, but with all the different employees, is we're operating under a longevity plan that has been in existence since 1982 or something like that. Been a long time.
It's been a while.
I mean,
Yes.
yeah, it's been the same as long as I can remember. And I can't remember back to 82. But I think that's what I was told. But it doesn't really matter when it was. It's sufficient to say that's a very long, 40 years. What I'm thinking about doing, and I think this will help all of our employees more over a period of time, is to, at a certain point, you know, right now it's all in 5-year increments. So it's like a step plan, only a step every 5 years, not every year. And without regard to general increases that we normally get. I'm thinking about working, and I'll have to work with both of these ladies to come up with a recommendation. And it could be a combination of making the period of time between longevity increases shorter, and or increasing the percentage of increase we give at that level, because after 5 years, what's longevity is 2%, and then after 10 years, it's 3%, and then after
15,
15 years, it's what? Is it
4,
is it 4?
and then 25 and 25 is 6, and
Okay.
that's where it counts.
So, inflation pretty much takes that longevity plan over before you get started. So, I want to think through, and this will be something that we'll probably bring to you, probably in the summertime, because we haven't really thought it out completely yet. But, you know, under the circumstances, I think if they could get a little bit more, a little bit sooner, instead of 5 years, maybe 4 years or 3 years, or maybe in one increment, it's a certain amount of time. And as you get more experience, it's a shorter increment amount of time. Then that would assist us with longevity with our current employees as they continue to work for us for longer periods of time. So it'd be something maybe more to look forward to. 2% increase after 5 years doesn't even really show up in your notes.
You're talking about, oh, I'm sorry, longevity, so, or, you know, retention, so that we can keep.
Right.
Yeah, I think the employee council was looking at that some years ago, and it's never come before me yet, so, but I was following that.
It's been looked at off and on for many
Yeah.
years,
Yeah, okay.
but it's never changed.
Okay, so question, you said it caps out at 6%, that was after how many years?
25.
So you should be getting yours.
Diggity dang.
And we'll just keep charging you while we're sure.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Okay. Okay. I mean. I've always been one that thinks that we need to reward our employees in retention to retrain and re-go through this and have the revolving door cost us sometimes more than what it does to keep.
Yes.
That's a no.
And in this particular context, it costs the most of all.
However, I do have a question about, I know some years ago, we passed a refund situation that if they train up and they don't finish so many years, they have to pay something. That's still in force for,
Actually, last year, the state legislature passed a law stating that if a police department hires a police officer and that police officer leaves within 2 years of employment, the hiring agency is responsible for the reimbursement of all costs of training, salary, and uniforms to the losing agency. And it's prorated over months. It goes up to 36 months, but within 2 years, it's 100% reimbursement, and after that, it's a prorated deal. So if I were to hire an officer now, and let's say they worked for the Bisbee Police Department for a year and then went to DPS, DPS would owe me every dime, including salary that we paid on that officer, or they cannot legally take that officer. But they classified it as a civil matter, so you can take that for what, it's not a violation of the law, it's a civil one. So
so we have to go to court to get it or what?
if they refuse to pay.
Oh. But that's all about, they can't, it's still cheaper for them to do that than send a new officer to go and go through academy.
It is far cheaper, even for us, it's cheaper for me to get an already ready-made officer than it is to send one and train out.
I know that's there, that's also. Inherit the stick, so to speak.
That's just to the first 2 years.
That, well, up to 36, first 2 years, 100%, 36 months, it goes like.
I was ready to smoke go through.
Yeah,
All right, I want to make sure that was still in place. I know that's something that we need to.
Well, it is, Mayor. However, when that went into place, it was actually targeted to the fire department. By a certain previous mayor. Just have to put that out.
Yeah. Well,
we were doing those
that was
forms,
paramedic.
I stopped doing them when that law got passed, because it was kind of a needed fun.
Hasn't been that long.
Apply to all public safety or just.
Just police officers, yeah, as far as I know, it specifically says certified law enforcement.
So you can get by with one less records person and one administrative assistant. So
I believe it can, like I said, Mayor, we were using those as placeholders to keep those staff that I.
we used to have
We used to have them, but,
it, get by without.
the first words out of my mouth when I went to go talk to the city manager is, I hope I'm not shooting myself in the foot. But
Well, that was-
I don't think I will.
that's what I'm thinking.
Well, there's enough people around here to remind you if you do.
Oh, I'm sure Anna will remember it 40 years from now.
She'll still be on council.
She'll still be in the council.
Okay, so because of that, chief. I got a question for you.
Oh, are you gonna give me the eye
Okay.
finger?
So. Actually, we're using mainly Coaches College Academy, correct?
Currently, yes.
Okay, and we had approved a community police officer a while back, and that was to get somebody in to basically do that FTO prior to going into the academy, so,
I think we've had a couple. that have done that.
and that's working out okay that way?
It's worked out fantastic so far with the two guys that we've had that have been doing that. It's been fabulous because they actually get to the academy with more knowledge than they would have had beforehand, and they've become very competent officers, and they've only been here for less a year now, one of them, and he's one of our, he's completely competent. So,
Okay, so then, given, Mr. Pockins' suggestion of the 21 while they're in training, the 22 as they're doing their FTO, and then going, are you okay with that step increase?
Yeah, I, like I said before, I turned it over to Mr. Pocken, I didn't even think about it, but I can't find any reason not to agree with it. It's actually, it's a good thought, and it falls in line with a lot of other police agencies. I can think back to my own academy experience when I was in the academy. Most of my academy mates, were getting paid an academy rate, and then they got a different rate when they graduated. And then when they made it through their final training phases, they again got another rate. And it's an incentive for them to do well in training, and it's an incentive for them to stay. Because it takes about a year to make a copy. So doing it that way, you're talking those pay raises are gonna be over the course of at least 10 months, if not longer. The academy is 20 weeks right now. It's gonna go up to 22 weeks, so you're talking almost 5 months. Or 6 months, and then our FTO process is another 12 weeks. That's another 3 weeks added on to that, or 3 months added on to that.
12 weeks is 3 weeks.
Yeah, 12 weeks is 3 weeks. So, you know, you're looking at 8 months there and then possible extension, if they need to show a little bit more proficiency on things and stuff like that. So, and yeah, once they're done with FTO, they can go out on the road, they can start working on their own and stuff, but it's generally at least a year, if not a year and a half, before you actually feel completely comfortable going to whatever that call is by yourself. I remember when I did it for at least 2 years, I was on the phone going, hey, this is what I got, what do I do? You know, and that's how it goes, so. Yeah, I think it would be beneficial.
I think it makes a lot of sense.
And we've had a few that have gotten to that point and then realized that maybe police work wasn't enough.
And we've had that happen too.
Just very recently.
Yes.
Very recent.
And you know what? I totally respect those kind of decisions.
You don't want somebody there that doesn't want.
Well, yeah, and then that's unfortunately, you know, some people think it's they watch too much TV or something. It's not like that all the time. It's, and I appreciate that they're able to recognize that, well, maybe this isn't what I want to do, so.
So. I know you're not gonna be real happy with me, Mr. Proctor. Because I'm probably gonna muddy the waters here. Right now, we have 50 cents across the board for everybody. And I know that that's how you like to do that, and I don't. You know, I think that's good that you think of, you know, across the board. You said you had an additional 50 cents. Chief is turning his back. Okay, so now yesterday you used the example of a gallon of milk costs the same for everybody, and it does. But it's going to be, because we talked about our department had started at around $75,000 at least. Okay, so those that are in the higher end bracket, yes, they can go and they can get that gallon of milk, they can go and get a pound of hamburger and buns to go with that. Where the ones on the lower end, they're gonna be able to go and they're gonna be able to get that gallon of milk, but they may not be able to get the hamburger and the buns. And they'll get the macaroni and cheese. So, because there is a little wiggle room right there. Is it possible to maybe those that are making like 48 or 49,000 and under, getting that extra 50 cents where everybody else is getting the 50 cents across the board, but those that are in the lower bracket of that, getting that dollar instead. And then with chiefs, being able to bring his officers up to a higher wage without affecting anybody's budget other than his. And it's not gonna change that bottom line item. Because I know you said, you know, we're constantly playing leapfrog. I don't see it as leapfrog. I think what Chief Cox has done is, in his thinking outside the box, he's found a way to make it work for him to, because we've had such a compression issue for so many years. And it's not going to help. I mean, no, it will help the compression issue. It won't clear it up, and we will always probably have that compression issue, but this may make it a little more of a gap there, so it's not, because I know that, you know, when they're, you know, when people are getting hired and they're making, you know, 25 cents or 50 cents less than somebody who's been on fire department, police department, or whatever, that has been working there for 5 or 7 years, you know, it causes issues there, and this might help make a little bit of a, you know, a bigger spread.
Okay, so just so that I'm clear, when you say compression, I kind of need a clear definition of what you mean when you say compression.
Okay, again, and I'm not picking on you, Jimmy, but I'm gonna use the fire department as an example. Some of the new hires were getting hired. Like 25 cents less than somebody who had been there for, 7, 8 years or more. And,
Okay.
and that's the compression that I,
Yes.
and the
Well,
same thing with public,
so I don't mean to cut you short, but I get what you mean. However, many years ago, like with the first MOU with the police department and the fire department, in those MOUs, we specified that anytime there was a raise in pay, that the starting wage and the salary schedule would go up to meet that. Okay, that is institutional compression. Okay, now, during those discussions with police and fire, and quite frankly, also with AFSCME, when we had an AFSCME unit, they'd come in and say, well, we need to fix this wage compression problem. And then further on in the discussions, then they'd say, well, we think that to guarantee that we all get a raise in pay, that the bottom end of the salary schedule needs to go up to meet whatever increase we give across the board. So that's what we've been doing. Okay, and quite frankly, during those discussions, and now, none of those people work here anymore, so you have to believe them. It was clearly delineated that, well, okay, so we're gonna make a recommendation to council to decompress the wage range. And then we're gonna institutionalize it. And that was okay. So that's what we've been doing. Now, below, I picked 49,000, okay? Joelle arranged for me a chart of everybody's, these were W-2 wages.
yes.
So it's not quite apples for apples, but close enough, okay? Below $49,000 a year, we have 51 employees. That's roughly 2/3. So, I'm trying to figure out how we can do what you want to do. I'm just gonna be honest with you, I am way less concerned about wage compression. Because everybody's making more. Over time, it's gonna fix itself anyway, because people fall off and other people fall in. And then longevity payments come in. And, to me, if everybody can make more, then that's good for everybody.
And we still will, everybody still will with that 50 cent an hour across the board that you said.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so everybody will get that increase
Mhm.
and that's great. But again, you said you had an additional 50 cents and then chief is giving his back.
Mhm.
So why can't we, to those 51 employees that are under that wage,
Uh-huh.
get the dollar increase rather than the 50 cent increase?
They're already getting it. My recommendation changed from 50 cents to $1.
I think you missed that.
Can I thank?
I didn't miss it.
Yeah, so I'm gonna give you my experience as a union negotiator that I did for fire department for years. This happened under my department, what you're saying. And what happens is that one person that makes 59,100 or 49,100 a year, all of a sudden, talk about wage compression, what you're doing is giving the lower people coming up and you're compressing the ability, those people don't get that additional, and pretty soon they cross over the top of that, and we had to go back and completely redo everything. When you don't do across the board, when you start to pick one group over another, pretty soon that group starts to compress the area from above, and you end up, those people all of a sudden start making more than the older people. That's what happened in my department, and we had to go back and completely redo it.
And Steve and I had that.
And secondly it was, you know, when you check back during merit, sometimes the merit was passed because there wasn't money that year, but the budget always came halfway through the year and some got merit and then the other half of the year we didn't. It was a total mess and we just, it took me months and months and months of negotiating with the county to get all this back straightened around. And so as you complicate the wage structure more by giving some and some don't and so on and so forth. Now, a different department, that's a different situation, but when you start to take the same people in the same department and say, okay, Public Works, you're making 49,100, you don't get the dollar raise, you only get the 50 cent. Well, then the person that's making 48.9 all of a sudden makes more than the person making 59.1. You start that compression becomes even worse, and you've got younger people making more than over. So I know, I understand what you're talking about, Anna, and I want to be able to try to maintain our people and keep our younger ones. I think this whole thing about longevity at 2%, 4% is ridiculous. We should always reverse that. We should get higher wages at the earlier stage, and lower ones later.
That's on tape.
So, and I mean, the longer you're there, you already got your merits and you've got this cost of living. What I'm looking at, what I slept on last night was, if we could do this, and I'll be honest, my concerns, and I'll speak partly to what Mel had to say, is our biggest tax base right now is our supermarket, all right? It is now totally up, who knows what's gonna happen. I was absolutely assured at the point when it was going to possibly merge and move from Safeway to something else, it would move into Kroger. Because they were only gonna move 25 stores out of Arizona, all right? Well, now they're moving 101. That will release 30 stores that are gonna stay in Arizona, that are gonna convert. Now we're gonna very possibly lose our store and go to this Piggly Wiggly thing, whatever it is. I don't know what that's gonna affect us if our people are not gonna be satisfied with what they're doing and what they're providing. Are we gonna lose tax base over to Sierra Vista? We have this bleed already for people shopping elsewhere. And I'm really wanting to see what this whole thing will play out before I'm willing to say our biggest tax base, which is almost $400,000 a year, something.
We don't know, and we can't tell you if we do know.
Well, but the state did a look at it when they were gonna do away with the sales tax on food, okay? So there was that number. I'm not gonna ask you, Karen, to look at it.
Don't rely on that number as a basis for what's really happening.
Yeah, for what's really happening, but that's just the sales tax, so anyway, I'm just saying, I know it would be a big, huge hit to us one way or the other. I'll let you know in a minute, but
No,
so my whole thing is, what I would like to see is a 75% across the board. And then take that, which comes out to be about $54,000 a year increase in budget. Because you said it was 108 for the 50
50
cents.
cents is on.
So it's 54
General fund.
general fund, yeah, no, I know. The other, we'll just have to deal with it.
Well, it's 150 if you count the whole.
Right, so instead of 108, it would be 100, well, anyway, 54,000 more than what we have in here now. And then, come December, when we're halfway through the budget and I get my financial statement and I see where we are, I would like to take that other 54,000, which would give it the whole dollar, and say, we could give up to a $6,000 bonus in December if everything's going the way it is and we know where we are a year from now. Leave that in there. I know it's weird.
No, I'm just,
Oh.
I'm questioning the use of the number 6,000.
Oh, okay, so instead of giving the dollar, which would be another 108,000, we
Uh-huh.
take half of that and give a 75% raise across the board,
75 cents.
75 cents an hour.
Uh-huh.
We take the other 54,000, which would have been for the full dollar, and we hold that aside. And if everything works out where we think we know, because halfway through the year, we pretty well know where the next 6 months is gonna lead us. We could easily give a bonus to all of our employees. And if you took the 54,000, what's that, a piece, $5,000-6,000 each? No, how much is that? If you take 50, oh, that's $500 or $600, that's right.
Yeah.
That's why I was.
Okay, I'm sorry, an extra zero in there, yeah, I realized as soon as I said it, but
So
still.
that's why they didn't say anything to us. Crying about that.
I was like,
But no, and not a $6,000 bonus, that's ridiculous. But, I don't know, what would $55,000 for 80 some employees? That's,
Around $600 to $700.
yeah, so that's a.
Depending on if you're doing full-time only or full-time and part-time.
So, okay, so that would be a Christmas bonus that we had done before the last 2 years, so that would help out. That's kind of where I am, because the problem is when you build a full $1 in, it's forever. And the only way, and I was here when,
Are we talking about the dollar for the city employees, or are we talking about the, what I'm talking?
I'm just talking about city
Oh,
employees.
okay.
I haven't,
You keep looking at me, I'm like, wait a minute.
I haven't gotten yours. I'm trying to say what my idea is for across the city employees. You might have to give about 75 cents instead of 50, but anyway,
Okay.
long short, to make yours.
Well, now he's gonna think about it.
I gotta go back and look at my budget.
Anyway, so the situation would be, where was I going now? I guess my whole idea is I was here in 07 and 08 when you were here, and all of a sudden we hit the recession, we hit the wall, and the only way to reduce your budget, it's 85% employee wages, okay? We had to lose people. And I don't wanna lay people off, I don't wanna start losing people. So if I start setting up something for a future mayor and council and say, okay, we're giving all this money, and all of a sudden we hit that wall, that can actually, you know, if we can do a bonus, it is that year only, and then it doesn't add on year after year after year after year. So that's why I would like this to come to the middle ground and say, instead of $1, we get 75 cents, and then we try to do a bonus in December. That way, it still comes out to the same amount as $1, but it doesn't live on forever. So that's where I am. I don't have a problem with your situation. I think that we are way behind across the board, not only just for fire, our police, we're behind on fire. In order for retention, we're also behind on our own. Everybody from public works to our janitors, okay? We can do what we can do to try to catch up when times are good. I will be honest, in the last 3 years, we changed a budget that was over $500,000 in the red when I came on as a mayor to a $480,000 in the black the first year, 1.1 million. Correct me if I'm wrong, I think we're close. To the second year, which then we paid off the PSPRS last of that, and this year we're looking close to $1 million. Now, if we can, I'm not saying this is gonna continue forever, but if we show that we can be diligent and do this, then we can give some more back to the employees, and that's what I'm trying to say. So that's my 5 cents, and
Well,
I'm out of here.
Since
Yeah.
75.
I know, we're almost coming up to an hour.
And just real quick for Anna's thing with the police department, I understand, you know, I know what my salary is and stuff, and just so you know, on your point, my proposal is for my 14 sworn staff. That does not include me or my deputy chief. We are not included in this. It is for the 14 sworn officers only.
and I appreciate that so very, very much. And, you know, again, you know, you said, Steve, that you weren't concerned about compression. Well, you're not, because you're not in that, and our department heads aren't in that. And Chief just said they're not. But for the lower end, they are, and that is an issue.
Well, I'm not going to disagree with you theoretically. I think in practice, when we do increases the way we're doing them, it does not make, if there is compression, and I'm still not convinced that it's as bad as we think, it doesn't make it worse.
I'm not gonna say no to money, don't get me wrong.
It doesn't make it worse.
I'm sorry, my whole compression is absolutely the opposite of yours. When we used to give cost of living at 5%, what happens is the richer gets richer and the poorer doesn't catch up. So by giving it across the board, you're keeping it the same and you're not making the difference.
And that's
You're-
kind of why we did away with, because we used to have merit and we would have COLA.
Right.
And then the next year, it would be like 3% merit, up to 3% merit, 2% COLA. The next year it was 3% COLA, up to 2% merit. That merit was, and that's kind of why we did away with it, because the merit was based on the department heads. The merit didn't go to every employee underneath them. It was kind of like a pick and choose who we're gonna give merit to. So it was, at that point in time, it was like, okay, let's just do COLA, let's just do a COLA. And then,
The wage thing spread out.
yeah,
I mean, I agree exactly with what the mayor is saying, because I lived it and I had this conversation with Steve earlier is. I have been a supervisor where I worked somewhere where I supervised 105 employees and 80 of them made more money than I did. And that's what happens with what the mayor is talking about. So you gotta be very careful.
Once you make that jump, all of a sudden, everything gets, you can really get it wrong. I
You get something.
And I know not everybody agrees with me on this either, but when I sent 2 police officers out on an incident. And they both get shot at. Which one's worth more? They're both worth going. And they're a big loss if we lose them. That's why I'm not concerned about compression. I think they all meet their fair age. And, maybe you're hearing complaints about compression. I haven't heard one in 3 years. Except from you.
what, do you think employees are gonna go to you and tell you?
Yes.
Heard about it?
Absolutely.
Sure.
They should.
They are, you can.
I am very vocal.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
And I just had a meeting, very frank and very open meeting with the union officers from the police. Okay, we just reestablished you just approved a new MOU with the fire union. Okay,
correct.
we had some very frank and open discussion about a lot of things. And some of it wasn't pleasant. And some of it was extremely pleasant. The day we signed that MOU, everybody was very happy. And compression was not an issue during those discussions.
We don't have an MOU with police though.
Well, when I met with them, I suggested to them that they may want to update the one that I negotiated the first time I worked here. Because that's the last time they did it.
We're gonna donate it to the museum because it's a piece of.
It could have antique value, but I suggested to them that maybe we could start updating them.
Well, I think what the chief is proposing is great. And, and that's a good move, and I think that we should go with across the board amount. That's the simplest, the most fairest, and until we hear complaints about compression, which we have. And I think we should go with the dollar, rather, it's kind of playing games. I mean, just get it done. Give people the money they need today.
I understand, if that unknown wasn't out there on our.
There's always gonna be an unknown.
Well, not to that point. Our unknown, we can control a lot of things, but we can't control what the state or federal government decides to do. It's true. Yeah, that's all. That's why I was being a little conservative in saying.
Joel's been patient.
You've been waving your hand back. What do you-
I just wanted to make one point in regards to looking at, say, 50,000 and drawing a line at a certain dollar amount. Because the information that we don't know on every employee, even I don't know on every employee, is someone making $50,000 that's a single young person. That's one financial situation. If you have for a family, if you have one worker, one person, staying at home with 3 children, that $50,000 is a lot different. And it means a lot different to each family depending on what their situation is. And that, I just wanted to make that point that looking at just a dollar number, I just really don't like that because that isn't the same across the board, even for different people making $50,000. You know, that might be not enough at all, and it might be fine for someone else that's a single. So that's just a comment that that information we can't take into that equation.
I asked Matt if he wanted to make a comment, he said that he thought about it, but he decided not to. I think he was joking,
I think we're getting to the end of the,
I think we're getting punchy.
all right.
Yeah.
I know you're a businessman. I mean,
Yeah, well, you know, I'm taking this in, I'm listening to the different strategies, I like the incremental approach that you came up with.
That was actually Steve.
Yeah, Steve. Steve,
It's just for two new items.
yeah. Yeah, I like that, the 75 cent, thing that you discussed, Mayor,
Plus bonus.
plus bonus. That resonated. In essence, you could do both those, correct?
Oh, yeah, that's a
Yeah.
separate issue.
Well, yeah.
Correct.
Correct. But the only issue I have with the 75 cents an hour plus bonus.
Yeah.
Is, I don't know that we should tie it. Because bonuses were given the last 2 years for staying around for you. Okay, they were given based on whether a certain business left it showed up. And I don't know how we can equitably do that. We can, but I don't know if it's equitable to say.
You say business showed up in town?
No. Say,
Whether it's.
Oh,
you say this.
No, what I'm saying is, if our revenue does not show a problem in December when we're halfway through,
Right,
then we pull the trigger.
and I get it,
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
but I don't know if that's a good benchmark. I just have a problem.
Our revenue.
When is there gonna be better clarity on the status of Safeway?
I don't, there is none. If you
You're not
know,
gonna know until it hits the newspapers, I guarantee.
but I don't wanna base this on a Safeway thing or whatever. What I wanna base it on is come December, when we get our financials and we're, okay, we are looking good this year. We've had the thing, then it's simply, the money goes to our employees for doing a good hard work for them for the first 6 months. That's what I'm at. I just,
6,000 did sound good for a second.
yeah, I know. I was about to take my proposal off the table.
So.
Maybe it's a
Sold.
Mayor,
Mayor, if I may just point, just because it's in the back of my mind and I have to say what I say, but bonuses, don't get me wrong, they're great. The last 2 years were very, very good for the officers. Well, the staff, they just enjoyed it. From my department standpoint, I can speak to it. Bonuses are a little tricky, and I'll just put it, just so I can put it in your mind. The average employee would rather have the raise than a bonus.
Absolutely.
So just, so you're,
I would have.
I don't think that's about as political as I could put it.
No, I absolutely agree. I would have either because I know it's there for the rest of my internment.
Yeah,
Okay.
and you can bank on it.
You come back. Absolutely. I'm trying to hit that middle ground to say, one or the other.
And I'd like to apologize to Joel and Carrie in advance if you do approve my proposal, because their heads exploded, I saw.
Well, it was, that proposal was revenue neutral.
Right.
The other one is not.
Well, based on what we know, it will cost, dollar cost, going to $1 will cost you another 108,000. So a total of 216,000 additional expenditure in the general fund. For now. So I believe we can absorb that. And
Good, let's go for it. I'm just,
Well, we
Everybody agrees?
payment, it's 160.
we already took it off.
Excuse
We took it off the premium for next year.
thank you, Chief.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, council. Thank you.
That's all I have. Okay, good. Well, so we just go ahead and let them work out those numbers and we'll bring it back to us. We will set a maximum amount in May.
What we would like to, I mean, obviously, the normal way of doing it is to take your direction, because you're in the work session, and incorporate it into the budget document that you've been going through
Right.
the last 2 days, and then approve it as part of the budget. Now, obviously, I don't want that to cause anybody to vote no on the budget. I don't know that that's gonna happen, I don't know that it is. So, all I know is that in 37 years of presenting budgets to mayors and councils, every once in a while, one person votes no. It is what it is.
Well, the situation
You
is,
still have a city to run.
you still bring us back that, and we can set the maximum limit, and if we decide that doesn't happen, we can lower the number at that
Because the
point.
next thing you're gonna do is you're going to adopt the tentative budget, which will
Right.
set
The maximum
the
amount.
maximum amount we're gonna spend.
If somehow there's a majority that would not want to set that maximum amount, we can do so, but I don't think that's the issue. Anyway.
Everything that we talked about here and everything that we're about to do, whether it's someone else's idea or whether it's yours, all of it benefits our employees.
Yeah, absolutely.
All of it does.
No, we want to keep retention.
You know, and, you know, I mean, I know I might sound like I don't, but if I could give them more money, I would.
Yeah,
Sure. Okay, I think we all feel that way.
Sure.
But, you know,
Fine.
just like Pete, I've got a business to run, okay? And I know, we talk about, you know, whose expertise is in what line of work, but, you know, I'm running a business here. Okay? With a $10 million general fund and overall budget of what?
36.
100 million? Except we don't spend it that much. But, you know, this is a business just like any other. The only thing is the product that we offer is a little bit different.
Well, a lot of our employees are doing it, or part-time employees are going just because of the minimum wage. And so we need to try to meet that too, unfortunately. Well,
And those are typically part-time seasonal folks.
I
They're not the full-time employees are all about.
yeah, actually, but that compression, they start to come up, and if we can't keep up with that, I know. It really is not.
We must have heard that over.
All right, I'm not going there anymore. I'll give the last bit to anybody that wants before we close out the budget session this year. Anybody have anything else?
I make a motion to adjourn. I second it.
We have a motion second to adjourn. We are out of budget
That's a
hearings at this point.
good comment, Frank.
That's what I was waiting for.